Okay, let's talk about two phrases you hear constantly: global warming and climate change. They get thrown around all the time, often to describe the exact same thing. But are they really the same? The answer, as you'll see, is a big no, and understanding why is key. So let's unpack this. So, what is the real difference? It's a super common question. In the news, in conversations, online, people use them pretty much interchangeably. But getting the distinction right is the first step to actually wrapping your head around what's happening to our planet. So let's just get this out of the way right now. They are not the same thing. They're definitely connected, deeply connected, in fact, but one is a very specific phenomenon, while the other is this huge, sprawling web of consequences that comes after. And look, this isn't just about being a stickler for words. It actually changes how we think about the problem, and more importantly, the solutions. All right, let's get right to the heart of it. The entire difference boils down to a really simple and powerful idea: cause and effect. Here it is, plain and simple. Global warming is the cause. That's the long-term heating up of the planet. Climate change, on the other hand, that's the sum of all the effects. It's all the other weird, widespread changes happening because of that initial warming. One causes the other. I love this analogy because it just makes everything click. Imagine the Earth is a patient. Global warming is the fever, just that one number, the temperature, going up. But climate change? That's the full diagnosis. It's all the other symptoms that come with the fever: the chills, the aches, the confusion, the way the whole system starts to break down. Now, we've got to tackle a myth that you've probably heard. This idea that they suddenly switched the name from global warming to climate change for some political reason. The real story is actually way more interesting and shows how our language has evolved right alongside the science. The truth is, these terms have been around together for decades. Climatic change was being used by scientists way back in 1956. Then, in 1975, the specific phrase global warming was officially coined. Now, 1988, that was a massive year. NASA's James Hansen made global warming famous in his testimony to Congress. But get this, in the very same year, the world's most important scientific body on the subject was created, and it was called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So see, they've coexisted for ages. That political spin story came much, much later, when a strategist advised using climate change because he thought it sounded less scary. So we know global warming is the cause, the engine driving everything else. So let's pop the hood. How does this planetary fever actually happen? What's the science behind it? It all comes down to something called the enhanced greenhouse effect, which sounds way more complicated than it is. Think of it like this. 1. The sun's energy hits the Earth and warms it up. 2. The Earth radiates some of that heat back towards space. But, and here's the crucial part, 3. Human activity has been pumping extra greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. These gases act like a blanket around the planet, and we've been making that blanket thicker and thicker. So 4. With a thicker blanket, less heat can escape. It gets trapped, and the planet's temperature goes up. Simple as that. And the results of that thicker blanket? Well, as of today, the Earth's average surface temperature has risen by about 1.55 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial times. Now, I know a degree and a half might not sound like much. I mean, the temperature in your house probably changes more than that. But for an entire planet, that is a massive amount of extra energy being pumped into the system. And here's the proof of that thickening blanket. Just look at the hard data. Before industrialization, CO2 levels were hanging around 280 parts per million. Today, that number is over 420. And look at methane. It's more than doubled. These are the gases that are trapping all that heat, and we're seeing the direct result. All right, so that's the warming part, the cause. Now, let's talk about the consequences. Let's look at all the system-wide effects that fall under the big umbrella of climate change. And here's the thing you absolutely have to remember. Climate change is so much more than just warming. It's a massive domino effect. That extra heat energy doesn't just sit there. It melts glaciers, so sea levels rise. It supercharges weather systems, so storms get stronger. It messes with rainfall, so droughts get longer and wildfires become more common. It even messes with the fundamentals, like when plants bloom. It's a cascade of disruption across the entire globe. You know, some people have started using a more informal term that I think just nails it: global weirding. It perfectly captures what's happening. It's not just a smooth, predictable warming. It's our entire weather system becoming more extreme, more chaotic, and more unpredictable. The hots get hotter, the wets get wetter, everything gets pushed to the extreme. Okay, so we've laid out the difference. But you might be wondering, Does it really matter? Is this all just semantics? Well, it matters a lot because the words we use actually frame how we think about solving the problem. Check this out. If you're focused on global warming, you're focused on the cause, the fever. The obvious solution then is mitigation. You've got to stop the fever from getting worse by cutting greenhouse gas emissions. But if you're focused on climate change, you're looking at the effects, the symptoms. So your solution becomes adaptation, learning to live with the changes that are already happening, like building seawalls or finding drought-resistant crops. And here's the key. We desperately need to do both. So, this brings us to the final question. After all this, if you had to pick one, which term is better? Which one is the most accurate? And the answer is neither. Or, well, both. There is no better term because they're both scientifically correct and they're both essential. Global warming is the perfect, precise term for the rise in temperature. Climate change is the big picture, umbrella term that covers all the consequences. Scientists use whichever one fits what they're studying. It's all about using the right tool for the job. But as the impacts get more and more intense, our language is already evolving again, isn't it? We hear terms like global heating or climate crisis much more now, words that are designed to convey a much greater sense of urgency. It leaves us with a pretty big final thought. As we navigate this new era, what's going to be the next word we all have to learn to truly understand our changing world?